Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to Season 19 of the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. Tonight, we are here at the Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park for round number 8 of the season. I'll tell you what, this should be a bit of a fun one here in these ARCA cars. Another one of these short, almost completely flat tracks here. There is just a tiny little bit of banking, but honestly, at these tracks, you really just don't even notice it when you're out there on the speedway. 12 degrees of banking here in these corners, but again, it almost looks completely flat here, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see how these drivers manage to pull this off here. 150 laps the distance here tonight. Going to be doing an awful lot of braking and throttle management here this time around. Opened up back in 1960 though, so pretty long standing on the real world. And it's only the third time that ASRC has visited this track, once in 2024 and once in Season 2 of 2025, which was just last season. So far, the only two winners in league history at this track is Brian Sabelski and Garrett Hess. Speaking of, those two drivers coming into tonight's event are still our current points leaders. Garrett Hess, 120 points to his name coming into tonight's event with 5 wins on the docket. Brian Sabelski back in second with 86 points to his name. Only 1 win to his name so far here this season. Then the only other winner right now is all the way back in 7th in the point standings right now. That is going to be Daniel Sparks with 61 points to his name. Both this being round number 8, we only got 4 races left to go after everything's all said and done here tonight. So getting into the closing stages of the championship here for season number 19, and I think it's going to require Garrett Hess to have basically all 5 of these races go incredibly poorly for everyone else to have much of a decent chance of getting back into this championship. I mean, the difference right now between Hess and Sabelski, 34 points, doesn't sound like a whole crazy amount, but when you're getting 20 points every race at absolute best, I mean, that's going to be difficult for Sabelski to close up. Driver back in third is Jason Gardner with 70 points to his name. That's 50 points back from our championship points leader right now with 5 races left to go. That said, though, speaking of racing, our drivers are starting to make their way down to the starting grid here. So how about we take a look down at our lineup here for tonight's race. Starting out on the pole here in the number 61 machine, driving in the World Pack entry, that is going to be none other than rookie driver Hudson Rupp. Starting his outside in the number 12 machine, that is going to be Garrett Hess, our current championship points leader, one of the only 2 drivers who have taken home wins at this track. He's going to be starting on the outside of the front row. Back in third in the number 85 McConey Setup Shop entry, that's the only other driver that has taken home a win so far at this speedway, Mr. Brian Sabelski, looking to see if he can't figure out how to close up the point standings on Garrett Hess here tonight. Back and forth, though, going to be the league administrator himself, Mr. Jason Gardner, in the Motorcraft entry, number 93, back and forth. Then back in fifth, running an unsponsored scheme here this evening, that's going to be the 78 of Derek Murphy. Then back in sixth, the driver out of Harmony Township, Pennsylvania, that's going to be the Dirt TV number 27 of Johnny Bell. Then back in seventh is the driver out of Noonan, Georgia, in the C0 box entry, that's going to be none other than Corey Logan. Then back in 8th, going to be the 188 of Joshua Rudolph back there, with the number 44 of Mark Royce, rounding out the tail end of this 9-car field here this evening. Going to be Garrett Hess, Hudson Rupp, your 2 front row drivers here, and it's going to be green flag this time around. We will be seeing the pace car pull off once we get around to the front of this thing. Only 7 of our 9 entry drivers are on the field, though, which is definitely curious to see. Maybe some mechanical issues. We'll have to look into that after the green flag comes out. But for now, the pace car is off, and we are getting ready to go green flag racing here at the Indianapolis Raceway Park. Coming into the restart zone, green flag up in the air. Hudson Rupp leads the field across the line for the first time here tonight. so far looking good through turns 1 and 2. Rupp still at the advantage. He moves up to the high line to cut off Hess. And it looks like it's going to be smooth sailing here for these drivers heading down into turns 3 and 4. This track, a very outside line dominant track. We're basically going to be seeing the whole field stick it as far up against the wall as they can here. In the early goings, they might be able to get away with being a little bit lower down, but definitely as the race goes on, I anticipate seeing all of these drivers pretty much staying straight up against the outside wall here. Hudson Rupp, so far so good, leading your first couple of laps here, but only about a 0.3 of a second gap between himself and Garrett Hess. It is still pretty dang close. Jason Gardner is also back out on the field, which is good to see. Very far back, but he is running in that number 93 machine, so might have just been some mechanical issues for that car, but they managed to get out on track. Mark Royce, however, nowhere to be found. It looks like he's actually, I think, packed it up and put it on the hauler here. So that will make it an 8-car battle here for this 150 lap event. Turning roughly 21, just barely under 22-second lap times here for these drivers. So assuming caution free, that should work its way out to about 3 laps a minute. So that'd be math is hard. We'll figure it out. There's plenty of racing going on. That's what's important. Hudson Rupp, Garrett Hess both having little bits of scrapes against the outside wall there coming out of turn number 4, but still nose to tail for your 3 front runners, Rupp, Hess, and Zabelski. Of course, Rupp, rookie driver here this season. I believe this is his 2nd ever start in the league, and he walked away with a podium in his first start back at Irwindale, I believe it was. Leading over Hess and Zabelski, both these drivers multi-time champions in ASRC. Both of these drivers previous winners here at the Indianapolis Raceway Park there, as Garrett Hess goes a bit wide going into turn number 3, manages to hang on to it. That time Zabelski having a bump against the outside wall. Corey Logan also getting in a little bit of a scrap there together with Joshua Rudolph. Rudolph's going to move up to the 6th position here, running a much lower line than we see Logan being able to pull off here. Logan's running in the same position where they qualified at. Rudolph up +2 as they start to pull apart from each other here just a little bit. Up the front, it's still nose to tail for your 3 front runners, Hudson Rupp, Garrett Hess, Ryan Zabelski here. And you can see just how much of a lead they've built up. The rest of the field already is outside of the frame of our camera here, as they're about 2 seconds back from our 3 front runners. But all 3 of these drivers are right on top of each other, and all their best times are also tied as right now. 21.75 for all 3 of these front running drivers. Garrett Hess starting to close up to the rear quarter panel of Hudson Rupp there, but not quite close enough to make a move here. But it's still looking like Hess might be about to get something lined up here and make some sort of pass happen. Both drivers sending it in deep, drifting up into the outer corner there, but Hess is going to have a little bit of advantage trying to pull down to the inside, but just not able to get the momentum to work for him in the middle of the corner. And still Hudson Rupp has led all 12 laps so far here tonight. Bit of a wiggle though. Rupp getting into the outside wall down the back straightaway. Both of these 2 drivers still sending it in very deep into turns 3 and 4. It seems like they're sliding a bit mid-corner. Fortunately not hitting the outside wall, but definitely looks like they're drifting up the track. Zabelski just behind. He's being patient. And last time by, it was actually the fastest of these 3 drivers, so we'll see how it comes across the line here. But it's looking like this time by a 22.04 for Rupp, a 22.03 for Hess, a 22.04 for Zabelski. And once again, very evenly matched for these 3 drivers. The rest of the field right now is looking pretty spread out. Johnny Bell back and forth, 4 seconds back from this battle. Then Derek Murphy is a full second back from him. Joshua Rudolph another 3 seconds back from Murphy. And then Jason Gardner a second back from Rudolph. Really pretty spread out around the field here, except for this battle for the race lead here. Again, Hess tries to figure out a way to get the nose up underneath that 61 machine, but he just can't quite get close enough to make it work. And it seems like with every attempt he makes, of course, scraping against the outside wall there, not doing himself any favors. But with every attempt that he makes that doesn't work, Sabelski gets closer and closer into the picture here. Now both drivers separated by only 0.2 of a second from each other. Or excuse me, all three drivers only 0.2 of a second apart from each other. Very equally matched here, but Hess seems to be making the most mistakes out of the three of them, having the most scrapes against the outside wall here. We'll see how it ends up working out for him in the long run, because again, we're not even 20 laps into tonight's event out of 150. These drivers need to make sure that they don't burn these tires off of these race cars. Something else curious to note. I know we've been talking about this off and on throughout this season, but we are now on round number 8 of 12. We've seen many different faces come and go here in season number 19. Still have not seen a single Toyota entry so far here this season. It's all just been Chevys and Fords. Right now, Hudson Rupp is leading the race in that number 61 Chevrolet. Hess back in seconds in a Ford, and then Sabelski in third in a Chevy as well. So curious to see how the manufacturers are actually lining up here. I don't believe we have any stats tracked right now of how the different manufacturers are doing in terms of points, but that might be something that we look into after the end of tonight's event for next week's broadcast, is looking and seeing how Ford and Chevy are stacking up so far in season number 19. Of course, we're all tuning in here for the drivers themselves, though. And I'll tell you what, even with Garrett Hess having such a massive points lead, it's definitely been exciting seeing these newcomers in these last couple of weeks show up, and I think give Hess a run for his money. He has definitely been having to really work for these finishes, and like already 22 laps in the books, Hudson Rupp has led every single lap over Garrett Hess, who has proven to be such a dominant force in this car. And there is the 24 of Corey Logan going a lap down and missing a front bumper here. I'm surprised that there wasn't a caution. I'm not quite sure what happened to that 24 machine. I'm not seeing any incidences in our race history log either, so I'm not sure what the deal is with that. Definitely unfortunate for that 24 machine, though. That's probably going to be race over for the driver out of Newnan, Georgia. We will have to see if they're able to get that car fixed back up. That is some pretty substantial looking damage, particularly to not have a caution flag come out. I will be putting Corey at least one lap down, though, as they make it down to the safety of pit lane here. Still keeping an eye on this battle for the race lead. It's starting to spread out just a little bit here, but if we pull up the track map here, you can see just how spread out the rest of the field has gotten, as Hudson, Hess, and Sabelski have now pulled up to a 7-second lead over the rest of the field. Pretty much an entire straightaway over the 27 of Bell and the 78 of Murphy back in 4th and 5th. We have three very dominant cars here this evening. But we'll just have to see how the cookie crumbles here. Anything could happen, and sometimes when you see these three really fast drivers, not necessarily these three, but in the circumstances like this, where you see three incredibly fast drivers just all on top of each other all race, sometimes that's when you get a bit of a recipe for disaster and you start ending up seeing front runners take each other out. So we'll have to see what happens. Traditionally, all three of these drivers have shown themselves to be very clean competitors, but you never know when someone might make just a little bit of a mistake. And you've seen it happen here before in the Oval Series, instances of sometimes even teammates leading the race by substantial margins and wrecking each other out of the event entirely. We've seen race leaders run out of fuel on the final lap. We've seen all sorts of shenanigans in the last 19 season competition here. And how about shenanigans like that as Hudson Rupp and Garrett Hess both smack into the outside wall. Sabelski tries to get the nose inside, but still not able to. I'll tell you what, all these cumulative little scrapes against the wall, all of that damage is going to start adding up. And it's only a matter of time before one bad scrape ends up causing some steering damage on these cars. And with how tight it is between these three, that may very well just end up being a race-ending incident should that happen. So something that these drivers need to keep in the back of their minds to be a little bit more careful about touching that wall on corner exit. 30 laps in the books, though, in just about 10 minutes, roughly. So looking at probably about a 50-minute race here tonight if we keep it going under the green flag here. That's going to be a lot of driving for these three ARCA cars up here that are still just absolutely all over each other. The gap has not grown more than about 0.2 of a second between each of these competitors. A little bit further back, Derek Murphy and Johnny Bell are having a little bit of a scrap of their own. Not quite as close between the two of them, but still battling out for the 4th position nonetheless. Johnny started back in 6th, up +2 from where he qualified. Derek still running in 5th where he started at here in that 78 machine. And Johnny, all things considered, coming into tonight's event, doing pretty decent in the point standings. He's running in 5th right now, 3 points back behind Kevin Alessia, who is not present for tonight's event, and another 3 points back behind Jason Gardner, who is currently 2 positions behind him. So we might just see Johnny make some pretty big gains in the point standings if he manages to keep running how he is here tonight. We have officially seen a change for position in this battle for the front runners, though. Brian Zabelski has gotten around Garrett Hess. We'll go back, take a look back here, see if maybe there was a scrape against the wall, or no, Zabelski just sent it in deep and was able to get around the 12 machine just like that. Sometimes it's just that straightforward. Hudson Rupp pulling away from that battle, though, now up to about 0.8 of a second between himself and Sabelski. Still a long way left to go here in tonight's event, and there's another driver in a bit of a battle, a driver we haven't talked about quite much here tonight. That's Jason Gardner in that number 93 machine, managing to get around the 78 of Derek Murphy here for the 5th position. Jason still down -1 from where he qualified. I think probably what happened is there was a little bit of a mechanical issue that they had to check on with that number 93, and he just didn't get rolling off the pit lane and had to do a start from the pits, which is obviously never what you want to do when you're able to avoid it. But he's slowly but surely making spots back. He's gotten around Joshua Rudolph, gotten around Derek Murphy, and now looks like he's slowly but surely gaining on Johnny Bell here as well. It's down to about 0.8 of a second between himself and the number 27 machine, so we may see Jason be able to work his way all the way up into the 4th position here if he keeps up this momentum. Of course, what you gotta consider is the gap between Bell and Hess right now. Our 3 front runners still roughly within a second of the race leader, but the entire rest of the field now is over 11 seconds back from 3rd place. It's going to be very, very difficult to make that deficit up without a caution flag stalking the field back up. Hudson losing a little bit of ground, though. Not quite as big an advantage as he had. He got it all the way up to a full second between himself and Sabelski. Now back down to about 0.6 of a second, so Sabelski is gaining here. Last time by, it was a .26 for Rupp, a .25 for Sabelski, and a .33 for Hess. So right now, Sabelski is the fastest car on track as we get ready to close in on being a third of the way through tonight's event. Joshua Rudolph and Derek Murphy battling it out for 6th and 7th. Rudolph down in the bottom in that Rowdy Energy for the Hobby 188. Derek Murphy leading him in the unsponsored 78 here. Joshua up +1 from where he started. Murphy down -1. Joshua's going to send it in deep, make the move going down into turn number 3, drifts back on up, and he is going to successfully be able to clear over Derek Murphy there. But will we see Murphy be able to do anything back? A little bit of a slide going down into turn number 1. Not looking like he's going to be able to quite close that back up. Now down to about .3 between the two of them. Just a couple seconds up the road, we're seeing some battling going on between Johnny Bell and Jason Gardner as well. Jason closed that gap up pretty handily. Of course, it's just so difficult to make a pass here without another driver making some sort of mistake. Gardner now down to 0.2 of a second between himself and Bell. He's got that gap closed up nicely, but how is he going to work his way around the 27 is the big question. The bottom of the raceway here really just isn't usable to make a pass. All of the speed is keeping it up on the high line. And it definitely seems like all these drivers are really having difficulty making passes. Pretty much every overtake we've seen has involved pretty much a big send on corner entry while the other driver overshoots the corner just a little bit. So we'll see how it goes between these two. See if Jason can't find some other way to get around that 27, or see if Johnny ends up making a mistake. Still neck and neck between these two. 0.3 of a second between the two of them now, so the gap has grown just a tiny little bit, but again, it's a similar situation of both these drivers being pretty similarly paced with each other. We'll wait for him to come across the line here to get the next lap times and see what they're looking like. Going to be a 22.54 for Johnny Bell, a 22.51 for Jason Gardner, so both drivers very equally matched here. We also have a battle going on for the race lead, about just as close between Hudson Rupp and Brian Sabelski. Once Sabelski was able to get around Hess, it looks like he caught up to Rupp pretty handily here. A little bit of a whale coming out of corner exit here, but Sabelski has a very fast race car here. Knight last time by, a 22.48 for him, a 22.49 for Rupp. Hess a 21.42, so Hess was actually the fastest of the three despite being a second and a half back from this battle right now. I do believe we see some lap traffic up there with the 78 of Derek Murphy, so we'll see if he ends up playing a factor in this battle at all. With it being so difficult to make the bottom of the track work, I wonder if we're going to see Murphy try and get out of the way. Of course, traditionally in the ASRC Oval Series, we do see a lot of these drivers make the effort to stay out of the battle of the race leaders when they're being lapped, but on a track like this, there's just not a lot of real estate to be out of the way. Intentions regardless. And uh-oh, there's trouble. That's the 61 of Hudson Rupp around. Caution flag is out on the speedway for the first time here this evening, and it is going to be for our race leader. Tell you what, I mean, we've talked about it time and time again. Sometimes there's just a little bit of an element of chaos here in these races, and just because you are the fastest car on track doesn't mean you're immune from whatever motorsports tries to throw at you. And I think we might have seen issues with Brian Sabelski. Maybe pit lane's just open. Maybe I'm just mistaken that was pit lane opening, but for a second I thought Brian Sabelski crashed under the yellow. It does look like We're having a good amount of takers down on pit lane. Not everyone is coming down, though. Jason Gardner elects to stay out. Joshua Rudolph elects to stay out. It looks like Derek Murphy elects to stay out. But your 3 front runners all come down. Actually, your 4 front runners come down with Johnny Bell as well. But as the drivers work their way down onto pit lane and get their pit stops done, let's take a look back at this caution flag once again. So taking a look down here at Hudson Rupp, coming out of turn number 2, drifts up the track just a little bit, gets hit, hooked in the outside wall. And Brian Sadowski tries to swerve out of the way, but the sudden speed difference just a little bit too much for him to avoid Rupp. Take a moment, we'll ride on board with Sadowski here and see what he saw going into that incident. Just not a whole lot that could have been done there to avoid that. So just like that, that'll be the first caution flag on the speedway. And it looks like we have some more takers on pit lane. Derek Murphy's come down, Joshua Rudolph's come down, Jason Gardner's come down. So everyone has made the call to come down pit lane. It looks like we had those 4 front runners come down, and then everyone else changed their mind and decided that they were going to follow through as well. But while we're here under this yellow, of course, got to take a moment to give a big thank you to everyone tuning in here to tonight's event. Of course, a big thank you to our friends over at SM Racing Products for helping put these events on for y'all to watch. Of course, SM Racing Products, run by several drivers here in the league, decided that they weren't quite happy with their options on the sim racing market, and they were looking for some button boxes and weren't quite happy with what they saw, so they decided, you know what, let's go ahead and just make our own. And just like that, now the 2 of them have gotten out there and have started selling the equipment that they make, so happy to have them on board here with the ASRC Oval Series. Definitely be sure to go check out sm-racingproducts.com. That said, the pace car is off. We're getting ready to go green flag racing once again, and it's going to be Hess and Sabelski leading us to the green flag here. So far, so good. Heading down to turn number 1, but it's going to be Garrett Hess with a slight advantage. A little bit of a bump there with Sabelski as he tries to hang on to the lead. Neck and neck going down into turns 3 and 4. It could be anyone's game here. It looks like Hudson Rupp's going in there, sending it 3 wide. Here at the Indianapolis Raceway Park, we have contact between our leaders, but Garrett Hess continues to hang on to it. Rupp in second, Sabelski in third. What a chaotic start to that restart. Rupp gets a little bit loose, scrapes against the outside wall, nearly contact there with the 85 of Sabelski. Sabelski having to back it down big time just to avoid for making contact with these 2. But he manages to hang on to it, and now we're single filing it out here just a little bit for the front row as we're still 2x2 back here for Derek Murphy and Joshua Rudolph in 6th. Murphy going to make the move, and he is going to be at the front of this battle here. Garrett Hess straightening against the outside wall, losing a lot of speed there, but not quite enough for Rupp or Sabelski to catch up. It looks like all 3 of these drivers probably took tires on that stop. 14, almost 15-second stops for the 3 of them, whereas we see 8-second stops from Johnny Bell, Jason Gardner, and Joshua Rudolph. So I think it was just fuel for these drivers further back in the field and tires for our 3 front runners, if I am not mistaken. And even if the positions are different, we once again find ourselves in a similar situation where all 3 of these drivers very equal in terms of pace with each other, and all 3 of them are kind of pulling away from the rest of the field slowly but surely. Sabelski, he led the restart coming to the green once again, now finds himself back in 3rd behind Rupp and Hess, but Sabelski has shown he has the consistency to keep up with these 2 drivers, and with how many scrapes against the wall, we've seen another one there out of Hudson Rupp. It definitely seems like Sabelski is the fastest of the 3 while being able to keep his car off that outside wall. Again, Hudson Rupp nearly hitting the outside wall with the tail end of the car there. Garrett Hess now again into the outside wall. These 2 front runners pushing these cars with everything they've got, getting very loose basically all throughout the corner. It looks like these 2 are ice skating just a little bit. And Savelski is riding there in the third place, just waiting for the opportunity to make something happen. Rupp's going to send it down all the way down to the apron here to try and make a move on Garrett Hess. He's going to get it side by side, but he's not going to be able to clear him. He's going to fall back, drop back in the line here. Trying a little bit of a lower line again this time around, but not trying to make the overtake. Not this time by. He's got to get some momentum built back up, wait for another opportunity to do it. That was definitely quite the daring move out of that 61 machine. He is, again, a rookie driver here this season. I believe this is his second ever start with the league, if I'm not mistaken. And he's trying to make moves for the race win here. But 66 laps in the books. Not even halfway yet, but we are very quickly closing in on the halfway point of tonight's event. And this battle for the race lead between these three drivers has just been absolutely crazy. Another scrape against the outside wall here for Garrett Hess. Hudson's going to try and send it towards the bottom, but it's still the same old story. The bottom just doesn't have the momentum to really make anything work here at this raceway. You know what? Let's take a moment. Let's ride on board here with Ryan Savelski and see what all he's seeing in the kind of the hot seat behind these two drivers, waiting for one of the two of them to make some sort of mistake for him to capitalize on. Now officially halfway through tonight's event, and I'll tell you what, this battle for the race lead has shown no signs of slowing down anytime soon. All three of them still just completely all over each other here. And it doesn't look like there's really any difference in the fall-off between the three of them. Last time by, a 22.31 for Hess, a 22.32 for Rupp, a 22.39 for Sabelski. So Sabelski a little bit slower here, falling back just a tad bit, but he might be just trying to conserve a little bit and wait for these two to potentially make another mistake. We've seen Rupp and Hess have lots and lots and lots of scrapes against the outside wall and lots of contact between each other, so Sabelski is probably just sitting back in third, kind of biding his time and waiting for the right opportunity to strike, because you can see there he just pretty much demonstrated that he does have the pace to keep up with these two. It's just a matter of putting himself where he wants to be. Rupp trying time and time and time again to get around Garrett Hess, and he's gotten pretty dang close to it, but just still not quite an inch cigar here. Now 80 laps in the books, going to be making it 60 to go here. There's just no sign of backing down any of these three drivers. No settling into a rhythm, no riding it out here. They're just completely going to keep throwing it at each other as much as they can. Rest of the field pretty spread out here. Johnny Bell is 1.5 seconds back from Sabelski here. Jason Gardner another 3 seconds back from Bell. And then Murphy a second back from Gardner, and Rudolph another 3 seconds back from Murphy. Corey Logan looks to have also retired from tonight's event as well, so they will be scored in the 8th position for tonight's event. Everyone else still out on the field. If nothing else, that means that no matter what happens, they won't do worse than 7th. But we'll have to see. I mean, with how spread out the entire field is, I feel like if there's going to be a mistake, if there's going to be a caution, it's going to come out of one of these three. They're just going at it so hard with each other. So really a miracle that none of them have made a mistake yet. At least not a drastic one. Another scrape against the outside wall for Rupp there on corner exit. We've seen that time and time again. Eventually, these cars are going to run out of sheet metal to have sparks fly off of, and that's when you're going to start getting into the real concerning zone, because once that outer layer is gone, it's just going to be the right rear tire scraping against the outside wall, and the last thing you want is to have a tire go down. Rupp again, trying to send it in there, but just not quite able to make it stick. And surely all of these attempts to make the pass happen on the bottom can't be great for the tires on that 61 machine. I'd imagine once we get into the later stages of this race, we're probably going to see Rupp's speed start to fall off as he makes a big send down the bottom, but it ain't going to be enough. It's side by side on corner exit, but time and time again we see Garrett Hess on the outside line has the better run, and he keeps the momentum going. And it's every single one of those sends that Rupp is trying to pull off that don't work that has me concerned about his tire wear, because the lower down you go on the corner, the more that car is sliding around, the more rubber you're burning off of it. That's just not sustainable in the long run. Last time by, a 22.44 for Hess, a 22.45 for Rupp, a 22.63 for Sabelski. So Sabelski saving the most out of the three here. But even then, it's still neck and neck between all of them. And it seems like perhaps they're starting to slow down a little bit, because their lap times are now matching Johnny Bell's. Johnny is actually faster than everyone in your front three except Ryan Sabelski last time by. Johnny is closing up into this battle. Only 1 second back, and soon going to be less than a second. Johnny's been having a quiet night here, but the more these two throw haymakers at each other, they're slowing each other down, and that's allowing some of these other drivers to start to actually catch up to this front-running battle. And I'll tell you what, it's already been very chaotic here with 3 drivers. Imagine what it is going to look like with 4. He just has to keep on keeping on, running his pace, keep from burning his tires off too much, and I think Hess and Rupp are just going to continuously slow each other down with how hard both of them are pushing the cars. And that's going to allow Johnny to get well and truly caught back up to this battle for the race lead here. The question is, will it be enough in these final 58 laps for Johnny to get caught back up? I'm leaning towards yes, particularly if this race stays green. None of these drivers are going to be hitting for tires under the green flag, so I think 60 laps is going to be enough to make a difference for Johnny to catch up, as long as he's not burning his own tires off too badly. And I think Johnny knows that too, because he is starting to back off just a little bit. Last time by, a 22.75 to Sabelski's 22.44. So I think Johnny is realizing just how hard these 2 front runners are pushing each other, and gonna try and use that to his advantage. Just let the both of them run each other down and hopefully be able to get back up. I think Johnny is probably his biggest concern right now is what he's going to do if Sabelski manages to get to the front here, because Sabelski's kind of in a similar boat as Johnny is here, where he's just kind of sitting back and waiting for the opportunity. And right now, I mean, if that opportunity presented itself right now, Sabelski is in a far better position to capitalize on it than Johnny is, and that might be what it takes for Johnny to lose his chance. Well, we'll just have to see how this race plays out. For the time being, Rupp is again trying to send it down to the inside of the 12 machine of Hess. Still not quite having much success here, but he is trying, and he is trying, and he is trying. And now Sabelski is taking his nose down a little bit lower. He might be trying to see if he can't figure out a way to push that 61 past Hess here. Or at the very least, he might be just saying, I don't like how close Johnny is getting. I want to stop being patient and start getting around these 2. But now Brian is finding the same difficulties that Rupp is having, where it's just so difficult to make this car pass on the bottom of the raceway that I don't think he's going to be finding too much more success than Rupp has. Rupp again down to the bottom, and again not quite able to make it work. Johnny just a little bit closer here, hovering within the second back range from our race leader, or from Sabelski, excuse me. Is more than a second back from the race leader here. And another scrape against the outside wall for Hudson Rupp, and the damage to that car continues to build, but he still has an awful lot of speed under the hood, that 61 machine. Even with all the bumps and all the scrapes, he seems to be handling just fine here. But once we come across the line this time by, it'll officially be 50 laps left to go here at the Indianapolis Raceway Park. Only one caution so far here tonight, right around lap number 50. I'll tell you what, these 3 drivers have put on a heck of a show here this evening. That much is for certain. I mean, they have been nose to tail the entire race, non-stop. Rupp again, diving it down all the way to the bottom of the track onto the apron. But it's not going to be enough as he comes back up the track. Still side by side with Garrett Hess, but it's not quite close enough to make it happen. But he is consistently staying on the inside, and that's more than we've seen Rupp be able to do here in the past. He is actually keeping it too wide with Hess. They make contact though. Rupp bobbles a little bit. Sabelski goes down low, tries to capitalize on Rupp's looseness there, but not able to make it happen. And now suddenly Johnny Bell is much more substantially in this picture for 4th place. And it's kind of exactly what I was saying here, is that Hess and Rupp are slowing each other down so drastically with their constant battling that Johnny is just kind of cruising and catching up here. Because all he has to worry about is running lap after lap consistently, whereas everyone else, they're worrying about attacking, worrying about defending, trying not to wreck each other out. And Johnny is just having a nice Sunday drive back here in that 27 machine. Now down to 0.3 of a second between himself and Sabelski. He's basically officially a member of this battle here now. And there's still 45 laps to go. This race is by no means over yet. And I imagine this is going to stay green, I would think, unless unless Rupp and Hess make some sort of mistake. I would imagine this race is going to stay green, and they're just going to drive their tires until there's nothing left but the rims. And who knows? I mean, it definitely would be quite the story. Imagine a Johnny Bell win here in season number 19. Johnny is a league winner, especially in the Road Series. He has gotten lots of road course wins, but in the Oval Series, generally not all that lucky when it comes to race wins. So it'll be very exciting to see Johnny be able to make something work here. As we see some moves happen on the Raceway. Sabelski trying to make it work on Rupp, and they make contact. Rupp sending Sabelski into the shadow realm there just a little bit. Now Johnny Bell's here in this battle as well, but it wasn't enough. Because again, they're all just continuing to slow each other down, beating and banging all over the place here. Little bit of bumper cars at the Indianapolis Raceway Park. And it's like I said, it's just all these little cumulative mistakes that have allowed Johnny Bell to come into the picture here. Now more than ever, Johnny's in striking distance for a podium finish or maybe even a race win. 41 laps to go still. And all we can do is watch with bated breath as now Garrett Hess scrapes against the outside wall. He's going to bump almost into Rupp there. Rupp takes evasive action, almost gets into Sabelski. And again, like, we see Hess make a mistake. Everyone behind him suddenly stacks up. Rupp down to the bottom. He's going to try and make the move again for the race lead. Not quite able to make it happen. Still neck and neck between the two of them. Hang on to it there, y'all. I do not want to be the crew chiefs of these race cars watching these tires just get shredded away. I mean, we're going to get here into the final 25, 20 laps, and these cars are just going to be dirt tracking around here. They're going to be full sideways every corner, just drifting it, because they have nothing left to have traction with. But I'll tell you what, I'm loving it. This is some great battling between these four drivers, and it still is anyone's game here. We'll see how the lap times look coming across the line. A 22.56 for Hess, a 22.57 for Rupp, 22.62 for Sabelski, 22.52 for Johnny Bell. So Johnny was the fastest of the bunch last time by in the 4th position. Sabelski sends it in deep, gives Rupp a bit of a shove mid-corner. Rupp tries to make the momentum work. He's going to go down to the inside on Garrett Hess here. Will he be able to clear up? Yes, he will. Hudson Rupp is your new race leader. I almost didn't think he'd be able to make it happen, but it looks like that shove from Brian Sabelski was all it took to give him a little bit of the extra momentum needed to get around that 12. And now that Hess has been a little bit bamboozled, Sabelski is trying to make the move on the inside here as well. Rupp doing everything in his power to try and defend here. As now Sabelski has cleared Hess for the 2nd position. But no, not quite. Hess is still trying to make the run on the outside line. It is neck and neck here between these two, but definitely seems like Sabelski has the advantage. And this time Sabelski is going to clear him. Just like that, it's going to be Rupp, Sabelski, Hess, Bell, your 4 front runners here. Jason Gardner back in 5th, 5 seconds back. Derek Murphy back in 6th, another 5 seconds back from Gardner. Then another 3 seconds back is Joshua Rudolph back in 2nd. Zabelski's going to try and make the move now for the race lead. He's decided the time has come. It's no more being patient. It's time to try and full send this thing. And it looks like he's going to clear him. Brian Zabelski, your new race leader. Hudson Rupp just behind. Will he be able to make anything happen here? Now Garrett Hess is falling back just a little bit. I think the tire wear is really starting to show now for Hess as he slowly begins to fall away from this battle. And it's still 0.3 of a second between all three of them. I wouldn't count any of them out yet, but it does definitely seem like Hess is starting to feel the pain of these tires. Rupp against the outside wall. Hess against the outside wall. Johnny still quietly riding in the 4th position, hoping one of these drivers makes more mistakes. Zabelski pulling away now to a 0.5 of a second lead. And it's now 31 laps to go. What a race it has been so far for these drivers. But something I did want to briefly talk about, if I can find it. Johnny Bell, his stats for the ASRC Oval Series as a whole, not necessarily this particular season. I just want to see, has Johnny gotten a win in the Oval Series? Sources say no. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 second place finishes in that 27 machine, but he has not yet won a race in the ASRC Oval Series. And talk about third place finishes here. So he is at 23 podium finishes in this league in that 27 machine. And we'll just have to see what happens, but I still think Johnny is very much on the table here. He is a player in this final battle for the race lead. That said, Zabelski is starting to pull away here now that he has clean air. Coming across the line here, 22.36 to his name. 22.51 for Rupp, 22.6 for Hess, 22.58 for Johnny. So Zabelski definitely had a lot of speed still hidden in his back pocket, but I could see Johnny potentially getting around Hess here to work his way into a podium position here in these final, call it 26 laps left to go. Hudson up there having another scrape against the outside wall in that 61 machine. Zabelski is absolutely sailing away here now, up to a 1.4 second lead. It's still neck and neck for your second through fourth place drivers as we get 25 laps left to go here this evening at the Indianapolis Raceway Park. And what a race it has been here for these drivers. And of course, only a couple of races left to go here this season. After tonight's event, going to be heading on over to Dover Motor Speedway next week. Then the Bullring, USA International Speedway. And then on September 8th, we crown the 19th ASRC Oval Series champion at the Phoenix Raceway. And that one's going to be a little bit of a long one. That's another 150 lapper at a full mile-long raceway. It'll definitely be exciting to see how that plays out here. But all these drivers have been putting on a heck of a show all of this season. And it's always exciting when we get towards the tail end of it all to just see how things finally shake up for these drivers. We did also get the announcement for what we will be competing in for season number 20 of the ASRC Oval Series. It's going to be another NASCAR season, this time going back to the 1980s, running the 1987 NASCAR Legends machines. So that will definitely be a bit of a far cry here from this ARCA car. Those 87 Legends machines are notorious for being very slippery and very heavy to drive. So it's going to be a lot like driving some boats here. A couple seasons ago, of course, we did do the NASCAR trucks here in the Oval Series. So it's going to be a lot like the NASCAR trucks, but going even faster than them. So we'll have to see how it works out as Hudson again hard impacted the outside wall on that 61 machine. Last thing Savelski wants to see right now is a caution flag. That much is for certain, because he has pulled it up to a 2.3 second lead. He wants to keep it that way. He does not want there to be any chance of Rupp, Hess, and Bell being back on his bumper for a restart. I mean, it does seem like Savelski has taken the best care of his tires, but even then, it's better to have a more or less guarantee that things will go the way you want than having to take any amount of risk, no matter how small it might actually be. Look at how close we are running for second through fourth here. All these drivers right on top of each other. Last time by a 22.55 for Rupp, a 22.54 for Hess, a 22.51 for Johnny Bell. Well, it seems like Savelski's good to go in the first position, but it's really anyone's game here in these other three spots. Which one of these drivers is going to get an interview at the end of this thing, and which one of these drivers is going to be packing it up and heading back on the hauler? Only time will tell, but of course only 17 laps left to go. Again, 21 roughly second lap times here. Those 16 laps are going to go by a lot quicker than it feels like for these drivers. Rupp and Hess still neck and neck here. Now Hess trying to make the inside line work, try and make the moves he made on Hess earlier in tonight's event. Now work back on him. $15 to go here at the Indianapolis Raceway Park. Let's take a look through the field. Touch base with how everyone is doing here tonight, because we really haven't had the opportunity to talk to a lot of these other drivers. Of course, Brian Savelski here now up to a 3.5 second lead over the rest of the field here. Started back in third, up +2 from where he qualified. He's a pretty happy camper right now. Hudson Rupp was your pole sitter. He's now back down a position. Hasn't gotten a race win here yet this season, but he has shown time and time again he has the speed to battle it out with multi-time champions here. Garrett Hess as well, a driver that has had a lot of speed here tonight. Kind of just burned off his tires though. Now he's just trying to hang on to the third position and see what he can do here between Hudson Rupp and Johnny Bell. But he has such a massive points lead right now that I don't think he's too concerned about where he finishes right now. Johnny, though, having a very solid evening in that Dirt TV entry. Up +2 from where he qualified and putting on a heck of a run here. Hasn't had the greatest luck here this season, so to see him running up with the front runners is definitely a treat. And fourth place, definitely a top 5 one way or the other for the number 27 machine. All in all, a very good run for him. Back in fifth, 6.8 seconds back. Jason Gardner having a quiet night here. Down one position from where he qualified, but considering he had that mechanical failure right at the start of the race and had to start from pit lane, I'd say getting up to fifth, not all that bad. And in a complete bubble by himself, Johnny is nearly 7 seconds ahead of him. Derek Murphy almost 10 seconds behind him. Jason comes into tonight's event being scored back in, let's see here, back in third. That's right, tied with Kevin Alessia, so he should hang on to third unless Johnny gets around him. Then he'll be bumped back to fourth, but Kevin definitely going to be bumped back down to fifth here since he's unable to do the 10 here tonight. Then back in sixth, Derek Murphy in that 78 machine, also down one position from where he qualified here. As Johnny had a bit of an incident, it looks like. No, never mind, I'm just reading our graphics wrong, pardon me. Johnny's doing fine. But Derek Murphy here in that 78, having a quiet night, now at risk of being lapped. by that 85 of Ryan Sabelski, down -1 position from where he qualified. He comes into tonight's event being scored back in the 8th position in the point standings. Then back in 7th is the 188 of Joshua Rudolph here, up +1 from where he qualified, started back at the tail end of the field here. Joshua comes into tonight's event being scored back in the 9th position in the championship standings, immediately behind Derek Murphy. And that's how things are running here. Corey Logan unfortunately retired from the event on lap 22, and Mark Royce signed up but never made it out on the speedway. So 6 laps left to go. Let's take a look back down at this battle between your 3 runner-ups here. And they're making contact with each other. Big impacts there as Garrett gets into the back of Hudson Rupp. Big impact at the outside wall. Johnny's going to make the move. He's going to get around 1. He's going to get around 2. Will it be enough for him to make the pass completely? No, it will not. He's going to stay down onto the bottom here, try and make it stick. So far, so good. And will he clear up? Yes, he will. Johnny Bell makes his way up to the 2nd position in a single move. Now Hudson Rupp's the driver, having to make the bottom of the track work with 5 laps left to go. Side by side with Garrett Hassan, make that 4 to go as Savelski crosses the line. All the action happening here in these final 10 laps between these 3 drivers, trying to settle the score and figure out who will be bringing it home on the podium here. Hudson's now going to dive it down to the inside again, drift up the track a little bit. Not going to be enough to clear that 12 machine, but with 3 laps left to go, he's running out of opportunities to make that move happen. Johnny pulled it up to a now 2nd lead over these 2 as Garrett and Hudson duke it out with basically the last little whispers of life that they have left on their tires. 2 to go though. The last thing Brian wants is a caution flag to come out. So as long as nobody wrecks in these next 4 corners, not even 10 more seconds left to go before the white flag comes out. As long as nothing goes wrong before then, Brian Zabelski will be in the clear. And sure enough, Brian takes the white flag. 1 more lap left to go for the driver out of Denver, Colorado here. And that battle has been broken up between Hess and Rupp here. With a nearly 8-second lead, Brian Sabelski is going to take home his 2nd checkered flag of the season here at the Indianapolis Raceway Park, and also become the first driver in the ASRC League history to become a 2-time winner at this raceway. And talk about Johnny Bell bringing it home back in 2nd, up +4 from where he qualified here. A very solid run for that 27 machine, but continuing the streak, that now makes 10 second place finishes in the Oval Series for Johnny Bell with still no win. But give it up, race fans. Brian Sabelski is going to burn it down here as he takes home his 2nd checkered flag of season number 19. Going to be coming around the speedway here, doing his Polish victory lap that he does with every win that he gets. What a race we have had here tonight. Really, anyone in that top four seemed like they could have won it here. It's going to be Brian Sabelski getting it done. That said, race fans, don't go anywhere. We will be back here in just a moment with some words with your top 3 finishers. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back here to the Indianapolis Raceway Park. 150 laps of action here in the books, and what a crazy battle we have had for the race lead that entire race. But coming in at the very end, it's going to be none other than Mr. Brian Sabelski taking home checkered flag number 2 here this season. Brian, how are you feeling here tonight?
Mr. Short Track's back, baby. Yeah, feels good. Um, we had a little bit of a plan there once I got kind of shuffled back to third and executed really well on it. So, real happy with how that turned out. Yeah, it turns out if you let the guys in front of you race each other really hard, they'll burn their stuff up, and then you just kind of have to wait for the opportunity to come through. And I got a good opportunity to get by Garrett there in the second run. And I got a real quick opportunity to get by Hudson as well. So was able to take advantage of them, and then from there it's just all that tire saving I did being behind them just paying off.
Yeah, of course, you saw that one caution that came out in the earlier goings of this one for the race lead. Did you have any concerns when you were riding back there that maybe we would see another yellow flag come out? And did you worry that you would be involved in it?
Um, no, I mean Garrett and Hudson are pretty solid drivers. I knew if there was anything that happened, it would be incidental. It wasn't going to be anything deliberate. Um, was I worried about another caution? I'm always worried about another caution because that always happens whenever I'm in the lead. I just, I get a bad caution and then something goes wrong on the restart, and it's just like, okay, cool. I'm gonna taken away from me, but we went green. Everyone had a pretty good race. I was actually, I did not see what happened behind me, but I saw everyone kind of fall back. So I assume there's probably some kind of contact or getting together that happened. But yeah, it was a good race. Definitely props to Hudson and Garrett for racing as hard as they could without, being too wild about anything there. They were predictable, and it was just a matter of trying to figure out how to get by them safely without causing any issues.
Yeah, you definitely managed to make the track work for you here tonight. It seemed neck and neck between all of y'all until you finally managed to get around them. And I mean, we saw dives all the way down to the apron here. So was it really just that difficult to make a pass?
It is if you are little unfamiliar. If you're kind of not riding the racing line right, this is very difficult to pass anyways. But um, yeah, if you're kind of side by side, it really kind of chews the tires up a lot. So I tried to make sure that whatever I was doing, I wasn't spending all the laps side by side.
Sure enough. And then you said it, Mr. Short Track is back. Dover doesn't quite count as a short track, but after that, we head to the Bull Ring and then USA International Speedway. How are you feeling about your chances to take home more checkered flags at the tail end of this season?
Uh, well, I think one of those races I might miss, so I think it might be USA. I might not make because I'll be out of town. I'll have to check on the schedule. Um, the other ones are kind of, like you said, they're short tracks, but also not really. Like Dover's really a patience track, and tire management plays a lot into that. And then Bullring is really, really tight and really hard to pass. So it'll probably be a lot like this, with the maybe more of a line. So it may actually be a little bit more like a less banked Kern, but it'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out. I can't guarantee anything, but yeah.
And sure enough, too, I mean, Garrett has pulled up a massive lead in the point standings, but you're still doing pretty solid for yourself. Even if you don't manage to take home the championship here this season, we did announce next season, looks like we will be running the 1987 Legends NASCAR cars. Do you think that you can pull off a championship in a car like that?
Oh God, no. um, I've gotten better at them, but I'm still not. There's so many much better people at that than me. It's such a difficult car to drive. So I hope we'll be able to do some have some fun next season. Championship, it's always a chance, but I don't want to be too confident in that at the moment.
Fair enough. Still a lot of unknowns left to be looking forward to. But one thing is known for sure. You've gotten checkered flag number 2 to your name here tonight. So the microphone is all yours, Mr. Sabelski. Who you want to thank for making it happen?
I want to thank McConey Setup Shop official, Setup Shop E NASCAR. Glad to have them on the car once again. Dragon Rose Coffee, uh, coupon code Nihon Tiger, at dragonroast.coffee for 10% off your orders. They do a wonderful job. SM Racing Products, again, love those guys. Love their button box. It's always done me well and very sturdy. I've had it for like a year now, and it's does a great job. Of course, Aiden, thanks for broadcasting. Jason, Johnny for doing all the league stuff, and everyone out there for watching. Thanks for being here. And of course, everyone here showed up tonight. Thanks for racing and keeping it clean.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on taking home the race win. And I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Then back in position number 2 was Mr. Johnny Bell, who unfortunately we have not ever managed to get an interview out of since we started broadcasting all the way back in season number 7 of the Oval Series. So looks like this trend will continue here tonight, and we will unfortunately not be hearing from him. But back in third, our championship points leader, Mr. Garrett Hess, you fought tooth and nail for every inch of real estate on this track. You still managed to walk away with the podium. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. It could have been a lot worse. This track, it's really a driver's track, and if you're good at IRP, you are going to fly in the long runs.
Yeah, I definitely seen once Sabelski finally figured out how to get around you, he just absolutely sailed away. But there was a good probably 50 to 60 laps where you three were all just directly on top of each other.
Yeah, I think Brian's plan was really just to ride behind us and behind me and Hudson and just wait for us to burn our tires up. I was on a pretty garbage steering ratio. And that made me turn the car a lot more in the corners. And then by about 50 laps into the run, it would just lose all forward bite on corner exit, and I just couldn't get anything. And Brian was able to save tires better than me and Hudson, and heck, even Johnny Bell was. So props to Johnny for getting a good finish for one. Finally, I was about to say for once, but I mean it's really just been bad luck that's been holding him back. But yeah, it's a very fun race.
Sure enough, and of course hindsight's always 2020. Do you think if you came into this race with the steering ratio you wanted, do you think you'd be singing a different tune here tonight?
I don't know, honestly. I mean, uh, Brian was consistently saving just so much better than me and Hudson. I think I probably would have led more laps, but I don't think I would have won because Brian's so good at IRP. He's whooped me every time we've came here, and the only time I beat him was because of a late race caution last season in the trucks that allowed me to get past him. But yeah, Brian's just so good at IRP, and like I said, if you're good at IRP and you get a long green flag run, you're gonna fly because tires matter so much here. And once you lose that grip on corner exit, or that turn on corner exit rather, it's so hard to get back that lost speed.
Sure enough, and you talked about how the one race when you got here was from a race caution. It seemed like there was a pretty high risk of one coming out here tonight. So do you think that if there was a yellow in the last probably 20, 30 laps, would you have had any chance of getting around Sabelski?
No, because Jason Gardner would have won this race. He stayed out, or he didn't take tires the first caution, and because he expected another caution, and he would have been the only car to take tires, and he would have flown past all of us. But I'm lucky that I was able to salvage a third, so I can't complain with what I got.
Sure enough, and still the points leader by a comfortable margin. I feel like you're probably feeling pretty confident about taking home that championship, but looking at these final 4 races, how many more checkered flags do you think you can pull off?
Dover is definitely a possibility. I've always been good at Dover. I've always liked how you run Dover and the patience required with it. Um, Bullring, I've run so few laps at Bullring that I honestly don't remember how it drives. If Brian doesn't show up to USA, that could be a possible checkered flag. In Phoenix, that could be really between me, Brian, and Hudson for the win because you drive it a lot like IRP, except that the line shifted down, but the patience and tire saving aspect is still there. But for the championship question, I'm hoping that that I retain the lead. I wanted to keep a full race gap over Brian, and I really didn't want him to get past me, but he's just so good at IRP, man, and he was able to win. And great job to him. He did a tremendous job saving his stuff. So I'm not too concerned about the points battle right now, but I know that if I don't stay vigilant, it could shrink pretty rapidly.
Yeah, definitely. You two have basically been at each other's necks all this season, it feels like. And of course, we did announce, like I was telling Savelski, that next season we're going to be running the 87 Legends cars. If you take home your championship here this season, I believe that's going to be, what, championship number 4 for you? Do you think you can go for 5 in the Legends cars?
Probably not. I am not good at all in the 87 cars. It would probably be just 12 straight races of IRP for me. Like I would have good short and mid run pace, and then long run I would just fall off a cliff because those cars, they plow so much and they're so darn heavy. You really have to back it off and baby the car the entire time, and that's really something I'm not good at. I'm good at driving the car on the edge and feeling the edge out. That's why I was so good in the mini stock in an ARCA car, the previous ARCA car, because you could really find the edge for that. And with the 87 car, I've really only driven in a plate tracks.
Fair enough. Seeing so many of our championship contender regulars saying that they don't really know what they're getting into with the Legends cars, I think next season is going to prove itself to be very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if we get more people, and especially if they're good with the 87 car, we could probably see a first-time champion, no doubt about it. But it's all in the future. Anything can really happen during these short seasons.
Sure enough, definitely a lot to be looking forward to. For now, though, the microphone is all yours, Mr. Hess. Who you want to thank for making this podium finish happen here tonight?
Yeah, I want to thank everyone who showed up to Otakon with me. I went there last weekend for vacation, and I met up with a bunch of friends. I want to thank my brother for giving me something to wake up towards in the morning and for going to Otakon with me. Want to thank Team Watson Racing. Great group of guys over there. You know my usual spiel. I would thank Livewire, but they pulled 90% of their best album off Twitter, or not off Twitter, off of Spotify. And I just found out about that today, so that's a bummer. But besides that, I also want to thank you and Jason for making this all possible, putting on the league and putting on the broadcast.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on the podium, and I look forward to seeing you next week at Dover.
Yes, sir. I'll see you then.
You heard it here first, race fans. Your top 3 finishers here this evening. Well, your first and your third, but you didn't quite hear from the second one. It's going to be Brian Savelski, Johnny Bell, and Garrett Hess, your podium finishers here tonight. But of course, those aren't the only drivers that showed up for tonight's event. So how about let's take a look down at our race results as they stand now. If I could find the right button, there we go. Gonna be Savelski taking home win number 2 on the season, followed by Johnny Bell, now at 22nd place finishes in the ASRC Oval Series with no race win to his name. Then it's going to be Garrett Hess back in the 3rd position. Then back and forth, Hudson Rupp, followed by Jason Gardner in that number 93 machine, rounding out your top 5 here. Back in 6th, going to be the 78 machine of Derek Murphy, followed by the 188 for the hobby entry of Joshua Rudolph back in 7th. The CZ Robotics 24 of Corey Logan back in the 8th position, with Mark Royce unfortunately not making the call to the grid here tonight. He will be rounding out back in 9th. That said, that's just about all we've got here this evening from the Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park. Next week, heading on over to the mile-long Dover Motor Speedway with substantially more banking than this track has. So it's going to be a little bit more like a traditional speedway race. Should be a fun one to watch. For now, though, thank you all for tuning in.